morning, everyone. This is Michelle Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. I have a wonderful guest today. I always say that, but I always have wonderful guests. And his name is Bill Andrews, and he's very, very famous. If you haven't heard from him, he is king of, in my opinion anyway, of anti-aging science and technology. And he's going to tell us a lot today about telomeres and aging and why we age. And so, Bill, welcome to Ageless and Timeless.
Thank you. Welcome. Glad to be here.
You know, Bill, there's so much about you. I almost don't know where to start. But, you know, Lisa and I are very good friends, as you know, Lisa Tamati. And you, I know you were on her podcast recently, I guess. And I know you two and your wife share something in common that is just absolutely stunning, amazing, and that is your long distance running. So let's start off by just telling us a little bit about what is it about running that has intrigued you and enchanted you and captivated you for all these years, and what is the future going to be when you are trying now, I guess, in your you said you're going to be in your 70s? And you're going to be the #1 long distance runner. So I think that's a pretty lofty goal. But tell us a little bit more about, you know, why running is so important to you.
Well, you know, there's nothing that makes you feel more invincible in your life than knowing that you completed a 100-mile race. You know, and it's like health-wise, it's a good way to make you feel like you're doing everything right and you're healthy. But the true thing about ultramarathon running is the adventure. I mean, it's like no other sport I know of. You can go out in the middle of the wilderness, run all day, all night, and have places where suddenly you come around a turn on a trail and there's a table with food and water for you so you can continue on. And it's just the adventure, because you go places nobody else has ever gone before.
Yeah. I understand you went to that India, right? To that peak that was created by someone who I think must have been a hater of people, because he gave you one of the most difficult challenges I think that you could ever do. Why don't you tell us a moment about that, a little bit about that?
That race is called La Ultra the High.
La Ultra the High.
It's only one of many races that I've done like that. It's a race in the Himalayas of northern India that starts at 14,000 feet elevation and goes up to 18,000 feet elevation twice.
Wow.
And the lowest point of the whole course is 11,000 feet between the two peaks. And it's 138 miles long, nonstop running. Okay, so it took me 52 hours nonstop, all two nights without sleeping, stuff like that, to complete that race. But I think I'm still the oldest person to ever finish that race. And my wife was the first American woman to ever finish that race. And there was only one other woman that had ever finished it beforehand, but she wasn't American.
Right. Was that Lisa?
What's that?
Was that Lisa?
No, that's Molly Sheridan, my wife.
Oh.
But Lisa Tamati ran that race too.
Right.
And she ran it the second year that my wife ran it. So I've run it twice. My wife has run it twice. Lisa has run it once. And maybe she's smarter than the rest of us. But both my wife and I thought that was the most fun experience ever. Okay. I mean, we've also run through Death Valley and the Badwater race at 130 degrees temperature in Fahrenheit. And we thought that was fun too. That was 135 miles nonstop. My wife has run through the Sahara Desert in a race called, I'm going blank on the name of the race, but you go through the Sahara Desert starting in Morocco, and it's a 5-day stage race. I think it's 250 miles long. And she has very fond memories of that race. But it's the adventure. We're both addicted to the adventure of races and being in ultramarathons. You can do the same on bikes and things like that, and kayaks.
Right.
We do those sports too, but running for some reason gives you more an opportunity to look around and enjoy the scenery and carry a camera and stop and take photographs of interesting things, even though you're in the middle of a race.
I think most people say, "Oh, I can do that playing golf," but look, I have so much admiration for you. I mean, I have been a runner many years, and never like you, never that kind of challenge. But I always wonder when I was running, because I always used it as kind of a zen moment, in my life, to just chill out and just use it to relax in a way, even though you were exerting yourself. What goes through your mind? I mean, while you're running, what do you think about, and how has it helped you? I'm asking you two questions in one, but how has it helped you to be a healthy longevity expert?
Well, let me answer that in several ways. One is, let me first say that I believe that endurance sports is one of the best things that anybody can do to extend their lifespan and health span.
Mm-hmm.
As long as people will say, yeah, there's such a thing as too much, but running a 100-mile race is not too much if you are well trained and you have a philosophy that keep it fun. Okay, don't push yourself. So whenever I tell people when I speak at anti-aging conferences, exercise, keep it fun. When it quits being fun, quit.
Mm-hmm.
And save it for another day. But eventually you get so good at it that you can go 100 miles and still have fun. I get my C-reactive protein measured all the time after these races, and
Mm-hmm.
up. So it's not inducing a lot of inflammation. I always say that occasional running induces inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're one of those runners that run once every 2 weeks, you go run a marathon, you'll do well, but
Mm-hmm.
you'll be throwing up on your hands and knees, throwing up at the end of the race.
Right.
And your inflammation levels have skyrocketed. But that doesn't happen when you are a consistent runner, run all the time, and just enjoy yourself.
Right.
The other thing, what was the other part of your question?
I was asking, well, ask you what you think about while you're running. Is there, do you have use it as kind of a Zen moment in your life? When I say moment, I'm putting that in quotes. So obviously, it could be 52 hours of moments, but what do you think about while you're running?
Well, it's anything but Zen. Okay.
Okay.
I think a lot. In fact, I carry a digital recorder with me. Okay.
Oh.
When I'm running, I have a special pocket in my backpack, on my front of the backpack, to carry this, because I have some of the most original ideas ever while I'm running. And the problem is that when I get done with the race, I can't remember what they were.
Oh, it's like dreaming. It's like when you dream at night, you dream and then you forget your dreams, and that's so frustrating. I understand that. So
yeah, except that my thoughts are a little more logical than the dreams are. But
yeah,
I will record sometimes 100 messages on this thing to myself.
Yeah.
Race. And then when I get done, I'll listen to them, and they are brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I started this in like 1998, 1997.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a race in 1997, and we had a big problem at work that I had to resolve. And I came up with a solution while I was running. So I thought, oh my God, I won't remember this. So I came into an aid station and yelled, "Does anybody have a cell phone?"
Mm-hmm.
And somebody did, and I called my work, left myself a voicemail message. And then right after that, I decided to buy a digital recorder to carry, because I knew I would forget what that was. And I did forget what it was, and had to go listen to that voicemail to know what it was. And it really made a big difference in the company I was working for at the time.
Mm-hmm. Was that what was it called? Geron, the
Geron Corporation. Yeah, in fact, it was. I had an idea of how to clone the telomerase chain, which I'll explain later in more detail. And that ended up being the way that we ended up getting it cloned. I just had to remind myself when I got back to work.
So just from a scientific standpoint, what do you think is happening that creates that possibility that you have these amazing enlightening ideas while you are running? just try to give us a little the logical side of that. Today's podcast is brought to you by International Anti-Aging Systems and Profound Health. The founder, Phil Mickens, has been a guest on Ageless and Timeless, and those who know him personally, as I am so fortunate to do, can attest to his knowledge, experience, authenticity, and his passion to help make the world a better place, with a commitment to work profoundly to improve our health. I personally have used the peptide bioregulators, some of his hormones, and his skincare products, and I can attest to their efficacy. If you want those unique and value-added evidence-based health products, then IAS and Profound Health are your number one resource. We're going to flash on the screen the different websites that you can use in order to order their products. And no matter which website you go to and which products you order, please use the Ageless code for a 15% discount.
Well, I think you clear your mind, okay? That nature is the best way to clear your mind. And when you start to think of, sorry, I've been on a lot of conference calls today, so I'm going to probably clear my throat a bit. It's like, and all of a sudden your mind starts drifting to work all by itself out some problems, and you're much clearer minded. When you force yourself to try to solve a problem, it's really hard to do it. But when you just naturally do it, the ideas just pop in your head, and that's something of the things that's why I never go without the digital recorder. It's like I can't. Just amazing the number of great ideas that pop into my head when I'm not trying to.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I hear people saying that when they meditate too, that they have they've quieted their mind and it allows innovation or creative ideas to enter that might be clouded by the typical thinking, which is oftentimes has negativity in it, or just obstacles to just basically creating new ideas. I mean, I wonder if Thomas Edison or Albert Einstein, what they did, when they had their moments like you have when you're running, how did they create that enlightenment, that awareness aha moments?
Well, I do call it moving meditation. Okay. I don't call it Zen. I kind of think of Zen as a little bit different than just basic meditation, because sometimes, like I've been a keynote speaker actually at many meditation and yoga conferences and things like that. So I know a lot about that. But I always try to say that you don't have to be repeating a key word or something like that. You don't have to be chanting or anything like that to go into meditation. Meditation is something that you can just go into naturally, and that's when you get your most thinking. But when I go to some of these sessions and people are playing some gentle music and recommending a chanting, I never have great ideas the way I do when I'm running.
Yeah,
it is the meditation, moving meditation.
You're endorphins to the limit when you're doing that kind of long distance running. You are stimulating all those neurotransmitters that are allowing you to feel good. So when you feel good and everything looks bright, and nature does tend to support, as long as it's not 113 degrees might be a little bit of a test, but when you're doing those beautiful nature runs, you are getting all the optimum stimulants for creative thinking. Well, I just want you to know that everybody that meets you and hears about you is in awe of you. So there are not too many people that could claim these kinds of accomplishments. And kudos to your wife, Molly, and of course I've always told Lisa how much I admire her as well. So let's move on, because I want people to know a little bit more about you and the work you do and how you're contributing to the longevity movement. So first of all, Sierra Sciences is the company you founded. Why don't you just explain to us what is your mission? And I know you have a foundation as well, so if you want to couple that with the answer, that's fine. But just tell us what is it you are trying to accomplish at Sierra Sciences?
Well, I don't have a foundation.
I thought it said online, and I even think in our bio of you it said Sierra Sciences /Foundation. That maybe I need to check that again. But okay, let's just talk about Sierra Sciences then.
Well, it's essentially the main goal of Sierra Sciences is to cure the aging process. And when I say cure, what I mean is I want to see aging get reversed in every way imaginable. I want us to look, feel, and behave like we're 25 again.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been studying aging my entire life. I've got more degrees and things in anti-aging, all the way from statistical theory to biology to chemistry to physics.
Right.
Study of evolution is I've got a degree in that. Just only because since I was a kid, I've been obsessed with, when I grow up, I want to cure aging. And so what did I need to know to do that? And why didn't I believe in all the other theories that existed? All the world expert leaders, I could always find problems with their theories. I always say the twos and twos have to add up, and they never did. And so I came up with the idea back in the, I think, 1970s that first of all, aging is kind of programmed. It's not just a random event. And look at bell curves or curves of the distribution curves, how old people are when they die. And you can see that they don't fit the typical model of randomness. There is something programmed in all of life forms that do have an aging process. And so we learned that in 1961, Dr. Leonard Hayflick had showed that human cells in a petri dish can only divide a certain number of times, and they go into senescence. That's called the Hayflick limit.
Right.
So I put all those two things together that I just mentioned and decided, and I knew enough I'd studied a lot of biochemistry and stuff like that too. How could a cell know how many times it has divided and how many times it has left to divide? And the only answer that could be explained that a cell has the ability to do was something the equivalent of ride tickets at an amusement park. Okay, a kid goes to an amusement park, a mother gives them 10 tickets. They go on a ride, they have 9 tickets left. They go on another ride, they have 8 tickets left. So they can always see how many rides have they been on, how many rides do they have left. Now, I decided there is a way to imagine how a cell could have such a counting mechanism. But other counting mechanisms that have been proposed just made no sense. There was no way, in a biochemical sense, it could be evolved. But then in 1993, I heard a guy named Calvin Harley speak at a conference in Lake Tahoe, California. And he explained that telomeres, the tips of our chromosomes, shorten as we age. And he explained that every time a cell divides, the telomere gets a little bit shorter. And not because of any mechanism. There's no mechanism that makes it shorter. Totally due to the lack of the ability of the cell to replicate all the way to the very end of the chromosome. So every time a parent cell divides to make 2 daughter cells, everything in that parent cell first has to be duplicated or replicated so that the 2 daughter cells have the identical things. And that includes the chromosomes. But it turned out that, in fact, this was known since the 1970s, when Alexei Livnikov and Jim Watson, one of the discoverers of DNA, can't believe I can't remember his name, but they both proposed that they both noticed that the cells lack the ability, when during replication, to replicate all the way to the very end of the chromosomes. So every time a new chromosome is made, it's shorter than the original chromosome. So there was no wear and tear, no degradation, no unraveling. It's just the new DNA was shorter because the cell lacked the ability to replicate all the way to the end. And so I started realizing these could be the ride tickets. Okay, every time the DNA replicated, the DNA is a little bit shorter, so it essentially didn't lose the end of the other ticket. It just never got the ticket duplicated. So every time, so it gets shorter and shorter and shorter with cell divisions. And that could be an explanation for why we age. But the mystery was, if that was true, then our children would be born with shorter telomeres or shorter chromosomes than we have. Their children would be born with shorter chromosomes than they have. And we would have been extinct after just a few hundred generations, or maybe even less. So there had to be some way in our reproductive cells, called our primordial germ cells, there had to be some way in those cells to be able to replicate all the way to the very end. Otherwise, our children would be born with less chromosomes.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I heard this guy talk in Lake Tahoe, I went up to him immediately and said, has anybody figured out a way to lengthen the telomeres the way that our reproductive cells do? And he said, no, they've been working on it for years, with collaborations all over the world. I just said, let me come and work for you, and I'll have it figured out in 3 months. Mm-hmm. And I did have a track record. I'm invested in more blockbusters in biotech than anybody you've ever met or ever heard of. Includes human growth hormone, tissue plasminogen activator stuff. He knew that, so he accepted. He offered me the job on the spot. And 3 months and 17 days later, I discovered, me and my team that I led, discovered the enzyme called telomerase. Mm-hmm. That we found in our reproductive cells that keep our reproductive cell DNAs from shortening every time. So that's how I got into it. Now, I'm not saying that telomeres are the only cause of aging, but no matter what else we do to solve the aging problem, they'll never work unless we also solve the telomere shortening problem.
Well, we know that there was TA65 and that was being touted as the answer to lengthening telomeres. What did you think of TA65, or what do you think of it? And what else is today in the world that is so cutting edge with so much science and technology? What are the contributors to lengthening your telomeres other than the TA65? But let's just first focus on the TA65. I know you were involved with that, right?
Yeah, I'm one of the inventors of TA65.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I thought, yeah.
While I was at Geron Corporation. But I'll be honest with you, it was so weak. Telomere lengthening and shortening is like a tug of war. Okay, mm-hmm. You can lengthen telomeres. Mm-hmm. You also have the other side of the tug of war, shortening telomeres. The net result is still shortening. Okay, so think of it as people in the tug of war. Some people are pulling to lengthen, some people are pulling to shorten. If you have the same number of people on both sides, it's a tie. Your telomeres are shorter. But in all of our cells, except for our primordial germ cells, we have nobody on the lengthening side, and so all we get is shortening. These are pulling to shorten and shorten the telomeres. So now TA65 comes along. It's the very first thing ever. It added one person to the side to lengthen, but there's like 100 or more people on the side to shorten. So TA65 does lengthen, but shortening is still occurring, and the net result is that the telomere is still shortened, but at a shorter rate. So my mission wasn't to create a product to make money. That was never my goal. My goal was to create a product that was actually going to reverse aging. Right. And I decided TA65 was not the answer. It was too weak. Right. And I hope I don't get any cease and desist letters for saying that. Right. I started Sierra Sciences simply to find something a lot stronger than TA65. Mm-hmm. We have found 37 natural products that are stronger than TA65 now, and we found over 900 pharmaceutical products. Not products, but ingredients. Chemicals. We found 900 plus chemicals that are much stronger than TA65, and I'm talking about 1,000-fold stronger. But we're still looking for people to market them because we're not a marketing company. All we do is, and we haven't found something it's potent enough yet to stop the aging process.
Mm-hmm.
We can calculate that our strongest chemical, and the chemicals are far stronger than the nutraceuticals.
Right.
But I hope we can find a nutraceutical that's strong too, because then you don't have to FDA approval and you're taking something natural. But our strongest pharmaceutical, it's called C0314818.
Oh, got to write this down. Hold on 1 second. C0 4
314
314. Yeah.
818.
Why does it have so many numbers and not a name?
Well, because we're doing research,
Oh.
and we have, that's our 314,818th chemical that we tested. So we're not going to give all of our names.
Right.
Well, we
Does
did.
it have side effects, Bill?
Well, we're at the basic research level. Okay, we're just looking first. I've done a lot of drug development. The first thing you do is you find a drug that has activity. Then you do medicinal chemistry to get rid of side effects. Now, this one didn't have any side effects, but we did license it to a few companies, and they do have it in their products now. And they did change the name because they didn't like the long number. They changed the name to TAM 818. And so people can find TAM 818 by doing Google search. I'm not going to promote companies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Yeah, we're not here to do that. We just want information. So, okay, let's go to the nutraceutical side.
Okay, let me finish with that, because it's not potent enough to reverse aging, but it's only 6-fold lower in inducing telomerase activity than what we think we need. And so so my focus is to continue research to find something that's at least 6-fold stronger than C0314818.
Okay.
And then when we have that, then we can start asking the question, does that reverse aging?
This is so fascinating. Okay, so, but people who want to jump in right now without the time it's going to take for you to develop this the chemical side, what nutraceuticals can people add to their regimen that are going to help them to lengthen their telomeres?
Well, there's a lot of nutraceuticals that will protect the telomeres from what I call accelerated shortening. But right now, there isn't any nutraceuticals on the market besides TA65 that will lengthen them. But there is something coming very soon that we've discovered, and I don't want to mark, but the company's name is Touchstone Essentials. And they will be marketing a new nutraceutical that is way stronger than TA65. It's right now it's in large-scale preparation. It's going through pesticide testing, heavy metal testing, and as soon as it passes those tests, it will be started to manufacture into capsules and bottles, and it'll become available. And I'm hoping that's within the next few months.
And so, what is it about it that makes it unique to help to not shorten telomeres?
It induces telomerase, so it induces telomerase to a level a lot more than TA65, but not as much as the pharmaceuticals that we have.
Right.
But lengthening, decreasing the rate of telomere shortening is going to extend your lifespan and health span either way, even if it doesn't reverse your aging. We won't see age reversal, and maybe we won't ever see it, but I'm hoping, I think it'd be very unlikely that we didn't, but I'm expecting that we'll see age reversal when we find a nutraceutical or pharmaceutical that's 6 times more potent than the best one we have right now. And we think that'll take 1 to 3 more years of research to find out.
And what about astragalus and some of the the more well-known nutrients that nutraceuticals that are on the market today? What do you think of those and the formulas that exist today?
Well, TA65 is isolated from astragalus root, but we've never we've never been able to detect any activity at all from astragalus, root or any parts of the plant, and any other things. The only that we do, I would say my lab is probably the best in the world for actually detecting telomerase inducing activity. TA65 is weak, but it's the only. Well, there was some other nutraceuticals that got discontinued because of problems with the company itself, not the product. But those weren't as strong as what the new one will be. But right now, at the moment, TA65 is the best nutraceutical you could take. But don't expect very much results. I think most of the results are placebo effects. But this new product that's coming out through Touchstone Essentials should be a lot more potent and should see some benefits. And there's a phenomena that's been discovered that even with low levels of telomerase, the shortest telomeres do get lengthened, even though the longer telomeres still get shorter. And that lengthening of the critically short telomeres actually does provide some age reversal effects. So people can see vision getting better, they can see hair color coming back, they can see endurance getting better. And we've seen that from some of the other nutraceuticals that were on the market that are weaker than the new one that's coming out.
So I told you when we spoke before that I had done the SpectraCell test, and you were not that thrilled with that measurement, that particular modality. But is there a lab that really does get accurate readings, and is that available to the consumer? I'm sure our viewers want to know.
Well, yeah, PCR is the method that SpectraCell uses to measure telomere length. And PCR is very, very easy to manipulate. And they can, without knowing it being manipulated. But like just the salt concentrations, the temperatures, everything like that can have a big effect. So PCR is very, very inconsistent. So I don't recommend that. What I do recommend is something called in situ hybridization, INSITU hybridization. The best company for doing that, as I said, I wasn't going to market products. It's a company called Lifeline in Spain.
Right.
And they actually do two things. They measure the average telomere length, and they also measure the percent of telomeres that are short. Because the percent of telomeres that are short actually play a bigger role in decline of health than the average telomere length does. But so people can. It's more expensive, but it's you're going to get an answer that means something. It's people can get their telomeres measured before doing any type of treatment or taking a supplement, and then measure it again afterwards, like 6 months to a year afterwards. See that their shortest telomeres got longer, but their longest telomeres still got shorter. That's a good thing.
Yeah. So, okay. So in addition to the telomeres, when you look at the kind of macro picture of aging, what are the other areas of that picture? I know DNA methylation is another big one for you, but why don't you tell us more about, let's just take that macro and then get down into the micro, like, the hub of a wheel is the macro. That's the anti-aging or longevity focus. And then on the spokes of the wheel, what are some of the other influences that you are, passionate about researching to solve the problem or the disease of aging?
Well, the main other causes of aging are oxidative stress and inflammation. Okay, so finding ways to decrease those are very important. And I'll come back to that in a minute. But stress, oxidative stress, psychological stress, all those things can accelerate the rate of telomere shortening. So minimizing those is very important. And then inflammation is probably the number one cause of aging. Every time you do something that causes inflammation in your body, you're accelerating your aging. And so leading a lifestyle that decreases those is really important. Now, I've done a little bit of research in those areas, but most of what I've done is read other studies. And what I do is called critical meta-analysis of peer review. I don't just look at the titles and look at the conclusions. I read the studies, make certain that they are legitimate, and then when I find like several studies on the same subject that are all legitimate, I look to see which one has the one answer and one has another answer. Which one gives the answer B the most and answer A the least. It turns out whenever I do my critical meta-analysis, all the final papers have the same answer. And so, but there's, and I want to say DNA methylation is really not a cause of aging; it's a measure of aging.
That's true.
It's we've been able to find, and other labs have been able to find that lengthening and shortening telomeres will actually affect the methylation process. So the methylation might be a result of telomere length. And same with many other markers too of aging. They seem to be back and forth by just changing the length of telomeres. Now, we haven't been able to do lengthening and shortening of telomeres in humans yet, but we've been able to do it in human cells in a petri dish. We've been able to do it with human skin grown on the back of a mouse, and we've been able to do it with engineered mice. Now, mice don't age by telomere shortening. Mice age by oxidative stress and what's called mitochondrial dysfunction, which is the cause of aging. And Dr. Ron DePinto at Harvard was able to engineer mice to make it so they do age by telomere shortening. And so he was able to show that lengthening and shortening them did have what he called remarkable reversal of the aging process. He was interviewed by Diane Sawyer back in 2010, showing data on that.
So let's take those oxidative stress and inflammation and telomeres, right? Those three. And what else is there? Is there anything other than that? Those three?
They all kind of are related, but there's accumulation of junk, which is a theory on aging. There's I'm just going blank out. There's like 12 hallmarks of aging right now. Most of them are related to wear and tear. So when I talk about how we age, I always say that the first thing of aging is wear and tear. But I say that wear and tear, and so oxidative stress, inflammation, all those things cause wear and tear.
Right.
The thing about wear and tear is that it really shouldn't cause us to age, because when we have worn and torn cells on the surface of like organs and tissues, and they die and get lost, we have other cells that can divide to replace those cells. So like for instance, when somebody's young, and let's say they have the muscular dystrophy gene, which is a good example. I can use other examples too. Let's say somebody has muscular dystrophy. They have the gene for it, but they're totally unaware of it when they're young, because the dystrophin gene, which causes muscular dystrophy, is killing muscle cells. And so other cells have to divide faster, more often, to replace those dead cells. But as a result, the telomeres get shorter, because every time a cell divides, the telomeres get shorter. When a person is like in their 30s or 40s, the muscle cells that divide to replace the dead cells have now got telomeres that are really short and can no longer divide. And that's when muscular dystrophy takes over and kills you. And so it's an age-related disease. You die of old age at a much younger age because of the fact that telomeres got shorter. Another example, let me just use one more example that I think people can relate to more. Alcohol kills liver cells. You can drink all you want when you're young, because it kills the liver cells, but other cells divide to replace those cells.
Mm-hmm.
But you can constantly be doing this. But because of the Hayflick limit that I mentioned before,
Mm-hmm.
our cells can't divide forever to replace those lost cells. And so when you're in your 40s, something like that, you suddenly can't replace those damaged cells anymore, and you get liver cirrhosis and end up dying from it oftentimes. So bottom line comes down to there's a lot of causes of aging that cause wear and tear, but most of them will probably end up being irrelevant as soon as we figure out a way to solve the telomere shortening problem. Because the true villain in all this is our lack of ability for our cells to divide indefinitely.
Mm-hmm.
And a certain number of times. And so if we could prevent that from happening, who knows how long we could live. We could live healthy for hundreds of years just
Mm-hmm.
because our bodies have the ability to replace every damaged cell.
Mm-hmm. So Bradfest, which you are on the board of, and I just had James Stroll, the co-founder, on my podcast last week. Obviously, the mission and goal of Bradfest is exactly what you just said: is to find the answers to solve the aging or the replication of those cells, and to basically cause the cessation of aging and create immortality. How do you feel about that vision as something that's achievable?
Oh, well, very much so. Let me say that Jim and I have been colleagues for many, many years, and we were doing a hike in Scottsdale, Arizona, when we came up with the idea of creating a conference that
Mm-hmm.
is exactly like Radfest. I think it was actually Jim's idea, but I just was all on it right away.
Yeah.
And but we didn't want it to be like a lot of other conferences that end up being a showcase for all the charlatans and
Mm-hmm.
quacks just are trying to sell anything they think that
Right.
need to buy. So,
Right.
so we decided, let's start a conference where, every speaker has to be qualified to be not a charlatan or quack. And actually, so I'm on the board of that. And one of my main jobs is to screen all the speakers to make certain that they aren't somebody who's going to be trying to lie or fake something. And unfortunately, a few have gotten through, and they've never been invited back to speak.
So really, I'm going to go this year, so I'll get to meet you in person. And what is it when you lecture? What are the favorite topics that you discuss, not only at Radfest, but just, because you give so many lectures? Is there one lecture that you just absolutely love to give because it has so much information that you're passionate about?
Well, it depends on how much time I have, but when I talk. But here's the bottom line: is that there's a lot of misunderstanding about what's going on in the aging process, and most people in the aging field really do not have a background in the study of aging. Whereas I've been studying aging my entire life, all through. I was running anti-aging clubs in high school and college, and taking all the courses I could to learn everything I could about the subject. So what I like to do is I like to clear the air in my talks and explain what's really going on. And I explain it in such a way as I say that there's a lot of theories on what all about aging, but we don't need those theories because there are absolute facts that explain everything. And so I do a series of talks, okay? And so the typical, the way I describe them is I always talk about the what, why, how, and how not of aging.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that.
Those are four different, and I'm going to eventually, when I get some time, write a book on the subject. I'm trying to find, there's no need for theories. We everything about, one of the skills that I have is I have a strong background in evolution. My PhD in population genetics, which is, and it's also molecular genetics, but population genetics is the subject of the how and why of evolution, not the what and when, which is what. So why did we evolve in aging? And more importantly, why did we never evolve a way not to age? Well, there's actually good reasons for that. That seems sometimes like I'm the only one that seems to understand. So what I do is my talks are explaining those. So what aging is, and that simply is, aging is really nothing more than the decline and failure of multiple tissues and organs. That's all it is. Okay. A lot of times when people start talking about what aging is, they include the how and the why. And the why we age is simply eliminating the longer lived, meaning those who have already raised their young from the population, actually increases the diversity in the population, genetic diversity. And the more genetic diversity that you have, the more likely some members of the species will survive a rapidly changing environment. So species that eliminate the longer lived have been more successful at surviving rapidly changing environments than those that don't. That's the 2-minute or 1-minute version. And the next is how we age, and I've already talked a little bit about that. Age because we lose the ability to replace the damaged cells.
Yeah.
And then how not to age is a big subject. One is antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, safe endurance exercise, just don't smoke, don't be obese. You know, I talk a lot about these subjects. Do meditation. Meditation is extremely important. Yoga, and exercise. I think I already said that. One of the weird ones is pessimism. Several studies now have shown that pessimistic people don't live as long as optimistic people. So, but then I also talk about all those things are really just causing wear and tear, and that what we really have to do is we have to none of that will ever allow us to live healthy longer than 125 years unless we also solve the telomere shortening problem. So that's why my focus on solving the telomere shortening problem. But I don't believe the war is going to be won in one battle. Okay, I believe that figuring out how to prevent telomere shortening is going to be, and how to lengthen telomeres is going to be one aspect to curing aging. And maybe it'll be the only thing we have to do, but it's not going to cure other things that cause aging. It's not going to cure alcoholism, for instance. It's not going to cure drug addiction. It's things, so we have to. So there's more to do after that. But but the other two subjects that I speak on a lot are, why is aging not cured yet? Okay, since we do know so much about it, and the bottom line is that in academic labs, people don't have the time. They're too busy doing teaching, writing patents, stuff like that. All the research is done by novice graduate students who have very little experience with doing science. So university labs is not a really good place to get things done. Then in the business world, that you pretty much rely on investors. But investors are only interested in investing in companies, adding value to the company, and then selling it.
Right.
And so people like me, if that happened to me, I'd lose all my intellectual property and stuff like that. And if I did any more research on it, I'd be breaching somebody else's contract.
Right.
So it's like, I talk about, that's why aging is not cured. That's why cancer is not cured. It's because the system for funding these kind of research programs don't work. Even when you do get grants, there's text in the grants from like NIH and NSF saying that they have partial ownership of the products and can control how the products are handled and stuff. That again destroys the ability to really get some serious research done. So that's one subject, and I spent an hour on that. Then another subject is, why do people think that aging is already cured? There's a lot of commercials out there, a lot of people promoting they've cured aging, they've reversed aging, and people buy the products galore. And that's because there are people that are called Redders, RHETORS, which stands for they're skilled at the art of persuasion.
Right.
No, I'm not good
Right,
at that. I just,
right.
I can only tell the truth. That one of my past investors, when I used to have investors, quoted me something that I repeat all the time, and that's hide behind the truth. And that's what I do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm going to make some progress here. But
Wish,
it,
as an aside, I wish more people would behave like you in the world today. Particularly when we look at what's going on in our political environment and at the moment, it's so sad. And we talk about pessimism. So much of the pessimism, I do believe, comes from the inability of people to be able to get along, to coexist. And when you say you're going to get canceled because you express your idea, that can create a pessimistic outcome because we're not allowing the freedom to have interactions. But so I'm all in your camp. Hide behind the truth, or be out in front of the truth, and don't be afraid of the truth. That's what I always tell my staff. Consider the source whenever they say something, and they're don't know where it came from, but they're just repeating something. And I always tell them, how do you know this is true? And always stick with the facts. But in science, you have an analytical left brain factual side, but then you've got this right brain, marketing, creative, commercial, and there's a bit of a battle, as you've just said. And how do people, like the investors, how do they stay true to the science when really their end goal is to make money? so,
yes.
so yeah, I agree
There's
with you.
there's a lot of billionaires out there, multi-billionaires, trillionaires even, that have all this money, and they wonder why nobody's cured aging yet, and they don't understand that the people that are investing in it are controlling the science and keeping the
Yeah,
science from getting done properly.
yeah,
I mean, when I used to have investors, I felt like we would have had aging cured over 10 years ago if the investors hadn't taken control, had us do other things instead. And then one day when we were successful at everything and they announced they were going to sell the company,
mm-hmm.
I was very fortunate in the fact that that one of those investors was like-minded with me and orchestrated a complete takeover of the company by me.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still a business partner of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And, now we don't get funding from traditional investing anymore.
Right.
Funding from go-to-market partners that are selling like discoveries that we made. We tell them we don't have anything to do with marketing. We don't have anything to do with testing.
Right.
All that, and then they do it and they make money and we get a royalty and that funds our research.
Right. So is there any one of those you want to talk about today to give us a little idea of, I know you're not trying to be commercial, but is there any, I'm just allowing you to have a little bit of a promotional moment. Is there anyone that you would like us to share with us?
Yeah, well, let me say two of them. Okay, so I already mentioned Touchtone Essentials.
Yeah.
And it's run by a guy named Eddie Stone, who I think is the most amazing person I've ever met in the nutraceutical field. And that's why I'm working with him. He's not interested in profits. He's very interested in doing good things for humanity. And wants to see some products on the market some products that are available to people that really will make them healthy. I'm really enjoying I've worked with a lot of like multi-level marketing companies and other kind of nutraceutical companies, but I've never enjoyed working with Touchtone Essentials more than I have. I'm trying to say, I've enjoyed working with them more than any other company.
But they're the number one.
Yeah.
And okay, I've got to make a note of him. Maybe I should invite him to be on the podcast. Would he be receptive to that?
I think so. I think he would be. Okay. Especially when he knows that I broke tradition and mentioned his company's name.
Right. I don't think hope that's not going to compromise any of the relationship, but I think it's really valuable. And obviously they're not on the market yet, but they will be shortly, as you said, right?
Well, they do have other products. In fact, Terrence Howard, the movie star Terrence Howard, was on an interview, and he all of a sudden stops and takes some medicine or squirts some stuff in his nose or something like that. And I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, my wife said I got to take this on the minute and not miss it." And the guy said, "What is it?" And he says, "Well, he named the products, but he didn't mention the Touchstone Essentials, but he mentioned the product names, which were Touchstone Essential products, and they're really good. I've never, I mean, I've got some products sitting right here that I take all the time. I'm sure I'm promoting their company, and believe me, I am not getting a penny for anything I say.
Right. No, I understand. We understand. We know you're not that way. So that's why.
The other company that, if I'm going to mention Touchstone, I got to mention One Truth 818, which is a company in New Zealand that is now has gotten testing done and now provides a skincare product that you put on your skin that contains our most potent pharmaceutical that I said is only 6-fold lower than what is needed to reverse aging. They can't sell it as a supplement because none of the countries have approved that as per use yet. But the safety studies, efficacy studies, everything were done for skincare products at a company called Abbott Labs in Italy. And now that's approved and it's available in New Zealand and people can buy it in the United States. Companies One Truth 818. And those are my two favorite right now.
Okay, good. Well, you said them just in time because we've run out of time according to our little flag here about the podcasts that we have to be religiously following because they have other podcasts after us. So we have to go. But honestly, Bill, there's so much more I want to explore with you. But I know every day there's new things you're doing. And I'm going to put those two companies, if you don't mind, have Alexis, my assistant, put them in our show notes so that people can follow up. And at least I'm going to be one of the first to follow up. So thank you for indulging us with that. Well, I will see you at RadFest. And we'll have a chance to chat there, I hope. And are you going to be lecturing?
Yes, I'm one of the main speakers.
That's what I thought. I saw you on there. Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you so much. I know you had a sore throat and you've been doing a lot of Zoom calls. So thank you for hanging in there with us today. And we'll see you on September 5th.
All right. Thank you.
All right. You take care. Bye-bye.